We've been talking about fat loss a lot, and I know that it can be something where you hear someone talk about it, but it's different than actually seeing it happen. So instead of just talking about how we can help people with fat loss, I thought that it would be really helpful to go through a client case and basically talk through how we navigated with someone who is very similar to our other clients, of someone who's very busy, someone who has tried to have fat loss for years before and haven't been able to see it, and break down exactly what we did for her specifically to be able to really teach.
Absolutely. I think that's a great idea.
Perfect. Well, then we'll just go ahead and dive into it. So this client is named Jackie, and she is someone who's a nurse that would have 3 to 4 12-hour shifts in a week. She also had 2 kids, so a working mom, and she had been trying to diet for as long as she could remember. She was trying to train 4 to 5 days a week. She was struggling with sleep, and then also was having some digestion issues. And in fact, I even pulled up her onboarding document to be able to give some quotes of the things that she was struggling with before starting with us. She said, "I had a huge mental breakdown because I hadn't seen much change in the scale. I had been working out consistently and hadn't seen much change. It's really hard because I have a bad relationship with the scale, and just seeing no change after all of the effort I've put in, it's left me panicked. I couldn't find peace at the gym. My stress levels are through the roof, and I was a mess. As of right now, I don't feel like I'm doing what my body needs. Yes, I've gotten myself to be consistent with workouts, but now I'm stressing over a lot of other aspects. Ever since I can remember being out of high school, I've always been trying to diet. Not knowing what I was doing, I would stick to just eating salads and chicken, and I would always try to be on low carbs. I would always break the diet once the weekend came around."
Very common.
That's something you hear a lot, something that you can help with?
Quite a bit. I feel like we hear it all the time.
Yeah, so Jackie is a perfect example of the clientele that we work with and the people that we're able to help of. Since high school, she's in her late 20s. So for about 10 years, she has been trying to lose weight, trying to diet, and hadn't seen much change in the scale, to the point that her relationship with the scale was in a pretty bad spot. But do you want to give a little spoiler before we go on of what Jackie was able to accomplish?
Sure.
Jackie was able to lose over 25 pounds working with us. And she actually, while she was with her significant other and they had 2 kids together, they didn't ever officially have like a wedding. So they were married, but they never had the whole wedding. And we were actually able to get her ready for the wedding. And another spoiler alert, her husband actually came on board and started working with Alex.
Pretty awesome.
So we got to work with both the husband and wife, getting them ready and getting them results that they hadn't seen before.
Yes, it was a fantastic experience working with both of them. How did you go about getting things started for her after doing the onboarding and really applying the individual nature that we take to clients?
Yeah, I think that's something to talk about even just within the onboarding, because I know sometimes it can feel like, okay, I've got started with a coach and now I have to answer all of these questions, or even just when you're going through the check-in process of feeling like this is a lot of information. But what I really like to talk about is that by knowing more about you, we can make it more personalized. And this is something where our service is highly customizable for each person. And so by being able to go through that initial evaluation to really understand where someone is starting with, that's where we can make the changes. Because for her, she's wanting to lose weight. But it's something where while she's been consistent within training, she hadn't been consistent or really figured out how to nail down nutrition for herself. And so she had just gone for eating less. And like we had talked about, of always going with salads with chicken and always trying to be low carb. So me taking her straight into a deficit, telling her to track every single macro, wasn't actually going to be successful for her, because we really like to meet each client where they're at. So actually, I went back in our emails and I had laid out goals for the first month, because we also really like to lay out timelines for clients as well, because it can be really hard to work towards something if you don't understand what you're working towards and you don't know how long you're working towards it. It can just feel like I'm doing this until oblivion. But we really like to explain what we're doing and really instill habits and behaviors that are going to build that firm foundation to get them to where we want to go. So instead of saying our goal is going to lose lose 5 pounds this month and I want you to be in a deficit. Our goals the first month were consistently getting 100 ounces of water a day. We went through her schedule and routine because, like I said, she had a really demanding schedule. 2 kids that were at the age of having other activities after school, having to be driven around, her own crazy schedule, and finding time for herself and time for her and her husband and navigating through that. Like I also mentioned, she was struggling with indigestion. So that was a huge other focus of the first month. And then being able to, with nailing down her schedule and routine, figure out how we were going to be consistent with food. So it wasn't just here's your macros, hit them. That wasn't going to help her. We needed to figure out why she wasn't able to be consistent and work within her lifestyle and her routine more than anything to work towards those goals.
Awesome. So as you went through that first phase, how long did that take you? And then what did you transition into as the second phase, if you will?
Yeah. So like I said, that was the goals for the first month. And within the first 2 weeks, she was already having progress that she couldn't even believe. She, like I mentioned, had issues within bowel movements and having consistency within those bowel movements. And she said 2 weeks in, this week so far, they are usually happening every single day. I cannot believe this. I haven't had any bloat these past 2 weeks, and I just got off my cycle and I didn't have any bloating either. I'm so happy about these changes in just 2 weeks.
I love it. That's
so
amazing.
That was incredible to go back and look at those notes there. But we really talked about within her digestion of some things we talked about was the water was going to be a big part of it. And then when we looked at food, she was having stress around eating. So each time she was eating, she was getting to a place that she was so stressed and so overwhelmed. She was waiting till she was starving, then eating way too quickly, just really shoving anything that she could in her mouth, even if it was quote unquote good or healthy food. She was eating it way too quickly, and then being in a place where her food was in really oddly scattered throughout the day. So like big boluses and then barely anything. And so what we did for her digestion and to be able to get her in a spot where she's going to have better energy to take on everything she had, we talked about eating in a lower stress environment. And we talked about specifically within her being a nurse of how to navigate around that. So I know many nurses, we work with a lot of people in healthcare. We're not going to be here just to be like, hey, make sure you get a snack in during your shift. I know most of the time you can't even have water on the floor. So us giving you an unhelpful hint, like just get in a snack while during your shift, that's not going to be great. So we talked through her exact schedule when she had access to different things and being able to nail down how she could eat even if she was rushed and how we could spread out food to be able to do that. And really talked about chewing her food better as well. And then we also worked in with her schedule of how to navigate making food for her family, because while her husband was on board and on his fitness journey too, it was still something where they both work full time and then they have 2 kids, and trying to navigate around how do we like eat in a way that still suits our goals, but that we're able to be a family while we eat. So we really talked through how to strategize within cooking in a certain way to be able to feed her family and make sure that she was still able to hit her goals without adding more stress to her plate on top of that.
Speaking of stress, one of the biggest things that nurses or the healthcare workers that we work with, one of the biggest challenges is for them to be able to get training around their work, coming off of a 12-hour shift. How did you go about her training and how did you structure that?
Yeah. So she actually, like I said, started by training. She was trying to train 4 to 5 days a week, and she was consistently not hitting that with that crazy schedule that we talked about. And I'm sorry, myself, if I'm coming off a 12-hour shift, I'm not looking forward to training. So it's either that training before a shift, which can be difficult when you're getting kids ready for school and trying to go through normal life as an adult. And so we actually bumped her training down to 3 days a week. And she was a little bit resistant to this, understandable, of feeling like in the past or what she had heard is that she had to train more. And it was just about her being disciplined enough to make this happen. But like I said, this is highly customizable. While some of our clients do train 4 or 5 days a week, some of our clients also train 3 days a week. And we really work within what you have available, because the thing that's going to drive results is going to be consistency. And within consistency, we need to actually have adaptability. And that's where people get things wrong, is they're like, I need to stick perfectly to what I've heard and I need to just do that and be consistent. But sometimes you can't be consistent because that doesn't fit what your circumstances and what's going on with you. And so she was a little bit resistant of feeling, am I not going to see results? Is it going to take so much longer? And I was like, how is it going to feel, or how do you currently feel within every week you keep falling short to making this promise to yourself? And she was beating herself up about that in check-ins because at first she was resistant. So I was like, okay, let's go ahead and do 4 days. Let's try that out for a little bit. And she was falling short each time. And it was really impacting her mental headspace and just her feeling like she was actually accomplishing what she set out to. And so that's when we started to have a conversation of like, hey, we do really need to go to this 3 days and this is going to better suit you. And that left her with better energy, a better mentality. She was able to have better sessions because she wasn't rushing through them or stressed about when she was going to get them in. And we were able to really form those on days that she wasn't working so that she also was able to have more balance in her day to day and just be able to clump her days and her schedule a little bit better to, again, show up for not only herself and her goals, but to show up for her family and her work. I think that a lot of people can relate to that of you want to be good at what you do. And it doesn't feel good when you're trying to juggle multiple responsibilities and you keep falling short on one of them, let alone multiple of them. And that's how she felt of, I don't have the energy and the focus to do my job the way that I want to do it. I don't have the energy and attention to do everything with my kids and be excited about it. And I sure as heck don't have the energy or the will to want to go to the gym after I'm so tired and beaten down after feeling like I failed time and time again. So we were able to work on both sides of not only having a plan that you're able to see results, even with training 3 days a week, but working on that mentality side as well, because that's something I feel like you and I in physique development have really nailed down overall, is that it's not just about your training and nutrition. It's about what's going on in between your ears. It's what's going on up here, and being able to work with that so that we're not working against ourselves without even knowing it. And that's something we heavily worked on, is being able to get her to a place that she could handle stress and she could handle a busy schedule so that her body could lose fat. Because even with eating as little as she was when we first started, she wasn't able to lose fat. And it was so fun once we actually got into a dieting phase for her to see, oh, I can still eat food and not be starving myself and actually see results.
It's a wild thing. Mm-hmm. Well, kudos to you both for putting together a plan that she's able to adhere to over the long haul and see such great results. In the timeline here, where are we currently at? And then what were some of the things that you continue to build on?
So we started within the first month of nailing down those goals. Then that next month was being able to kind of elevate goals, because I think that's something else within either habits or things that we're trying to accomplish. People might go from, I'm eating out every single day, to now I want to cook all of my meals at home. And going from this to this is very difficult. And so it's not a negative thing to be able to tier up your goals and work towards that. So instead of going from 0 to 100, we were able to work towards, like it was just 100 ounces of water. Let's figure out your schedule. Let's get consistent. Then it was going into more specific macro tracking once she got that nailed down and was able to feel confident. And again, not add extra stress to her plate. And we were able to work towards being able to add muscle to her physique without adding fat, to then be able to, within the first or after the first 2 months, actually go into a structured diet. And the thing with her, because she had so much stress and so many other things going on, we actually didn't do all of this in one dieting phase, because it was going to end up being too much stress on her body. And especially once it got into the weather changing, then she actually does like a rec league, like volleyball thing. And so being able to do that and still be able to hit everything, it was just a lot to balance. And so being able to do in 2 dieting phases was actually really helpful for her mentality to get to the point of, first, I can fit in my clothes comfortably and feel good and know my body is responsive, be able to pull back a little bit, come out of the diet for about a month or 2, and then be able to push back into it. And that's another way, taking her schedule. And it was like, hey, the kids are out of school. Now we have a lot more things that we're doing with them. I don't have the time that they're in school and being taken care of there. And so being able to take her schedule to really make sure she could see the most success, then go into another dieting phase, lose the rest of the weight, and then be able to move food up going into her wedding so that she could feel her absolute best, and just be able to feel like a rock star doing that. So as of right now, she actually has finished her time working with us because, like we talk about, our goal is to be the last coach that you ever need. So I don't want to have to work with a client for forever. Of course, if a client likes it, they like the accountability, they just like being able to have that in place. Like we do have some longer term clients that are on just for that reason. But overall, I want to ensure people are learning these habits and learning how to deal with life. Because like I talked about from her original onboarding of feeling like, oh, I always break the diet once the weekend comes around. I didn't want it to be, oh, I could stick to a plan and I could follow a plan if I was paying for it and had a coach in place. I wanted it to be, maybe that's how it needed to be for you to be consistent in the beginning, but now going into like you can do it on your own and know how to navigate that. So that's always one of my favorite, most bittersweet emails is when it comes to the point of like, hey, I think I'm ready to go off on my own. And I'm able to sit there and be like, you most definitely are ready to go off on your own and feel good about that. So she's actually taking on her second reverse on her own, which I'm so proud of. And she was able to really learn through the first one to be able to take that on and feel confident with it. So she's been able to maintain the weight loss. I still touch base with her, check in on how she's doing. She was able to maintain the weight loss and be able to go through the reverse and be in a really great spot because she nailed down those habits, that foundation, and was able to really learn through this that it also wasn't a one size fits all. I don't have to just train 5 days a week because that's what someone else does. I don't have to do it this way just because someone else does. I have to take my life and my circumstances into control or into consideration. And that's exactly what she is continuing to do, which makes me so happy.
Absolutely. Me too. The one thing that you said in there where she came out of the diet, what does that mean?
We went ahead and ended the diet because she had lost the weight that was the goal within that time frame. And so from there, we started to move food back up for her to be able to go through the reverse diet. And that was something, like I said, that she was able to go through on her own because we had already been through a reverse diet, maintenance, and going through building all through our time together. So she had that skill set.
Referring to the reverse diet, this is elevating calories and getting back to a calorie maintenance. With you only doing it for a month, was there a titration to the maintenance or did you just go straight to maintenance?
Yeah, great question. We moved things up slowly just because that was something where we wanted to pay attention to. Her digestion was a little bit fickle at certain times. And so we really wanted to make it that it was the easiest for her to get into her routine and move things back. So we actually did during the diet have some times of a diet break where we moved food up for the week. And so then it was something that she had had enough rest, so to speak, during the diet with those diet breaks to then be able to be in a spot where we could move food up a little bit slower. Where if someone was in a place where they had been in a prolonged diet, they were seeing a lot of negative effects from that diet, then I might move that food up a little bit quicker. But since we were able to do it in 2 deficits and be able to have those diet breaks, then we were able to move food up a little bit slower, have her feel confident of knowing where food needed to move, and then being able to go from there.
Gotcha. Well, what an incredible case and success, and her continuing to have success is awesome.
Yeah. And I actually just have 2 more things from her to read of some quick notes that she said within finishing our time together. But she said, grateful for a lot, grateful for you. Thank you for being a bomb-ass coach and just being there for me in the training and exercise aspect, but also being there for me beyond that and guiding me to a better mental space. So that was incredible to read. And then another one was grateful for you sharing how you handle stress or how I can handle stress and navigate the hard days overall has helped me out a lot. And it's just a perspective I've now installed in me, and it has changed my life so much.
I love that. I love it. I love it. I love it. That's awesome.
Low reps is best.
High reps is best.
Fruit is so
it's
good.
Terrible for you.
You should lift heavy.
High reps,
carbs
low
are
weight.
needed.
Keto
Squats
for
are
life.
bad for your
Squats
knees.
are great.
You
for your
should
knees.
squat ass to
Knees over
grass.
toes.
It's fine. It fits my macros.
It's for idiots.
When there are so many mixed messages going around, it's hard to know what you should even do or focus on. But that's exactly where physique development one-on-one coaching comes in. You might have heard of online coaching or even hired a coach before, but we believe in teaching you the why behind what we do while truly taking your life into consideration. We want to train, educate, and empower you to reach your goals and help you to stop spinning your wheels and just finally feel good. And hey, we're here to help you look good too. You need you. Your health is your wealth. So join Physique Development and let us be the last coach you ever need.
I have my case here.
All right, then let's hear it.
And so one thing with online coaching, I think some people get discouraged by when they are applying, they get signed up, is that they don't want their photos shown. They don't want their situation out in the open. They don't want to be broadcasted in that way. And that is something we're super respectful of within physique development. Like at the beginning of our time working together, it's one of my very first questions that I ask of, are you okay with us sharing photos? How do you want this to go? Like it is totally up to you of what you want shown, what you do not want shown. And so for this particular client, and this happens pretty frequently, like some of my best cases at this very moment, I'm not able to share because the client does not want me to share. And so this client specifically had incredible results, but at the time of working through all these things with her, she did not want anything shared. And so I texted her yesterday when I was making notes for this episode, and I asked if I used a anonymous name. We didn't show any photos, that I could walk through what all we did throughout her case to get her to a place of success. And she was totally on board for that. So this client, her name is going to be Sally.
Sally.
Hi, Sally. Sally had come to us eating roughly 1,400 to 1,600 calories. She was 2 years postpartum. She had had experience working with coaches in the past with not a whole lot of success. So she was in a headspace that she felt like she had wasted a lot of money, had wasted a lot of time, and did not feel like she was getting the service that she wanted, that she deserved.
Deserve, yes. That you're paying for.
And that is very common for us, as we are a premium service that is going to get into the details and be very specific to you and what your results need to be, or your desired results are going to be. And so we had to work through some of that at the early points. She was also working out 5 times per week. She was walking 10,000 steps per day. She was having horrible recovery. Her skin health was very poor. She was having breakouts. She looked very inflamed. She was swollen, had very low energy, and just felt like she was failing as a mom postpartum because she was not getting back in shape, and she just felt like she was not being a good mom because she had no energy and just felt like crap.
Well, that surprises me. She was eating 1,400 calories, training 5 days a week. Doesn't that mean that she should automatically be losing weight?
You know, if we're just looking at it on paper and we're looking at a textbook, that's probably going to be the case. But in this situation, when I have a client onboarding and they are giving me this information of where their food is at, and we've looked at their dietary recall, she's sending me what she's eaten over the last 7 days, and it is matching up. And I believe that she is eating those calories, because there are times where people are like, yeah, I'm kind of eating this. And then they get into tracking, like, oh my gosh, I was not eating that. I am so sorry. I accidentally lied. It's not on purpose, but I was actually eating 2,200 calories relative to 1,500 calories. Something, and that's an exaggeration probably, but it could be like that.
We also get it where it's under, where someone's
True.
like, I think I'm eating 1,700 calories. We get those dietary recalls. It's 1,400 calories, but that gives us really good insight to make really good decisions.
And so in that situation, I know that she's telling the truth. If we just look at it on paper, she should be losing weight. She is not. She is very frustrated. As I said, 2 years postpartum, she's been trying to lose weight almost through the entirety of that process to no avail. So at that point, it's important for us to dig a little bit deeper and get into the internal function and do some further testing. So as she was onboarding, we went through 2 different tests. We had her pull a Dutch test and a GI map. Both of these are going to show internal function within sex hormone function, as well as gut function overall. And to get into the very specifics of what both of those things are going to be presenting for us for data would be another episode. But we had those things pulled. What those things showed is that the sex hormone production across the board was low within progesterone, within testosterone, estradiol, as well as DHEA. And so we needed to support overall function of sex hormone production. That's going to be one tidbit. And what had shown from the GI map is that we had low mucosal strength or lining, as well as low stomach acidity. So we needed to strengthen the mucosal lining of the gut while also bringing up stomach acidity. And so with these things in mind, getting into a dieting phase was not the right answer. We needed to support overall internal function and get her body out of this very stressed state. So this is very difficult when you have someone coming to you and saying, bro, I have been busting my tail. All I want to do is lose this body fat. And you have to tell them it's not the right time. Getting the testing done helps tremendously because you can show them the data and say, these are the things that are being shown. These are the things that we need to improve upon. This is how we're going to do this. This is how much time I would anticipate for this to take. At the conclusion of this, if you do a great job and you follow everything I'm going to say here, we can get into a dieting phase at the conclusion of this. But trying to lose body fat while also correcting these things is part of why you're not seeing any success as is. And getting on calls, having conversation is the best way to work through this with a client. I have had clients come to me where they've had similar situations with other coaches and they're just like, this is what this shows. You have to do this. We can't diet. Talk to you next week. And it's like, I don't want to do that. Mm-hmm. But if they're given the reason and the understanding of why these things need to happen, it's a much better place to come from in a team-oriented setting, a team perspective of we are in this together and we're going to work through this and then we're going to be able to get to the goal that you have in place. Mm-hmm. So we set the stage for the first 12 weeks of our time working together, addressing all the things I just talked about within gut function as well as sex hormone production. And we focused on elevating her calories and getting to a calorie maintenance. And so she was at that 14 to 1,600 calorie allotment. And we got her calories and titrated them up to 1,950. This was a great set point for her. Her scale weight was staying stable. She was able to have much better energy. The swelling on her body was decreasing. So from a scale perspective, the scale was going down, but this was not body fat loss. This was mostly inflammation being lost on her body. Her skin was brightening up. Her skin was clearing up because of us working on resting more within improving her sleep. We also looked at her training regimen where she was busting her tail and getting after it for 5 full sessions. We had cut back her training to 4 sessions as well as improved the training volume because she was in the headspace of, I have to do as much as humanly possible and I want to grow my glutes. So I'm going to do every glute exercise that I possibly can in 3 sessions. We cut that back to 2 and had better exercise selection. She was seeing better progress in the gym. She was seeing improvements in her strength. She was seeing significant improvements in her mood. I think that was one of the things that's like, she was in such a negative headspace at the beginning of just like nothing was going right. And now because she had a better understanding of what the goal was in front of us, and those things were clicking, those things were working, that at that point, she's like, I'm much happier, let alone all the things that we improved within the supplementation, within the support, as well as improving food intake, the training protocols, her resting, her sleep, all those different factors.
Yeah. And how do you as a coach navigate the aspect of someone wanting to diet and have been trying to diet and maybe even they feel like they have a timeline of I need to look a certain way by this date? How do you navigate that when they're not in the place to diet?
Honesty. I think giving them real context to the situation and not sugarcoating it. I think just being very straightforward is the easiest way to come to that decision. Now, are there some individuals that are like, nope, I know that I'll go somewhere and they'll let me do what I want to do? Most of the time, those people leave and then they come back in 6 months and they're like, it didn't work. And now I've gained even more body fat and I'm more stressed. And now I've got more issues than what I talked to you last with. And so those situations happen. Not everybody's going to want to align with the better overall plan. But I think that's, having conversation, working through things, asking questions, and it not just being this email exchange of information is a much better way of looking at it. Like, I have such a tremendous desire. Like, all of this is so centered around helping people. It is such a fulfilling process to be able to take someone who's this frustrated that we're just talking about and then getting them to a place of relief and also like, oh my gosh, I can do this, and feeling that belief in themselves. There's nothing that really matches what that allows for me to feel inside. It's a very gratifying and fulfilling thing. And that's all I care about doing. At the end of the day, like, yes, all these things, they cost money, they cost time, all these different things. But at the end of it, it's just the opportunity to help. And I think that's the most beautiful thing.
Yeah. And I think within Sally, like being able to be told of, hey, if you can give me this for 12 weeks, then we can go and do this. That's much easier than the example you said of someone just emailing and saying, we can't diet, we need to do this. That can feel so defeating of like, what do you mean I can't diet? Does that mean I'm stuck like this forever? How long can I not diet? And it feels like crushing. And so being able to lay out those timelines, again, I find is so helpful to get a client on board because they can see the finish line. They can see what they're working for. Or if you just tell me I can't diet and you leave it at that, and I've been wanting to lose weight and I feel uncomfortable in my body, that's going to be really hard for me to agree to. And then it's going to be really hard for me to go week after week feeling so defeated that I'm not losing weight.
Yes.
But being able to know, hey, I just need to stick to this and like follow the plan for 12 weeks. Like I can do that. And then it's like, okay, now we can get to what I really want to happen. And I think that that's a big thing within our coaching is that we want to really facilitate lasting results. It doesn't bring me joy really to help someone lose 30 pounds quickly. And then they've learned no habits and they're back to gaining that weight, losing it again, gaining that weight, losing again. That actually makes me so upset and so frustrated. And we really put an emphasis on like, we want to teach you, we want to explain, we want to go through this with you so that you're not in this frustration anymore. We don't want to temporarily fix you and make you happy for a few weeks. We want to make it that your lifestyle changes and that you truly are able to connect with how to do this for yourself.
Yes. And the other thing I would say is that with the Dutch test, the GI map, it's important to give explanation to how everything ties together and not just using buzzwords of estrogen dominance and other terms that would be around that. Like, yes, the test may be showing that, but it's important for the person to understand more of how this all coexists and how they influence one another relative to just slapping a label on it and saying, you have this is why we're using these supplements. It's better to say these variables are in these levels. This is why this is likely happening. And this is how this would influence this factor. How we're going to address this is using this supplement to improve this value, which will there have an impact on this value. And we're going to see this happen over X amount of time. And this is how you're going to be feeling better over time. And the beautiful thing is you don't have to use these supplements for forever. Mm-hmm. Our goal would be to use it for this time frame to correct these things and then be able to titrate off of the supplements. And on that topic, my goal in that situation is to use as minimal of supplementation as possible, not in the lens of like, it's coming from a place of, I know getting the testing done, having the coaching, all these things are expensive. I do not want to just continue to add on the expense for the sake of it's going to maybe bump things forward. Maybe. Yes. I want certainty in having the most effective product in place to nudge things forward in the best way. So those are going to be the tidbits there. So for instance, outside of her base products, we had an extra 2 supplements in for the gut stuff. And then we had 3 supplements in to support hormonal function. So 5 products used over that 12-week time frame. And then we had a titration period of coming off of those over 4 weeks following that period of time. And then everything was stable when we tested everything. And she was not needing to take the supplements beyond that point.
And the other thing within the least amount of supplements is with hormones, so many things are interconnected and related. And so many people and coaches will just try to put a bunch of Band-Aids on it of like, oh, this number is off. We're going to do this for this. We're going to do this for this. Where because so many things affect one another, then I want to make the least amount of changes that is going to first have the biggest result, but also because like I just had a client who had a Dutch test. There was multiple markers off. Instead of being like, we're going to do this for your testosterone, this for your estrogen, this for your progesterone, this for this, we were like, we're going to start with one supplement. We're going to have this in place for 4 to 6 weeks because there should be a cascading effect from this. Then we can see we have certain markers we're looking for, not even getting new labs, but like there's certain things if we're looking for face brightness, we're looking for your mood to change, we're looking for your digestion to improve, that then we can look and see, okay, if we are still not seeing everything, then we can add in another supplement and move it in that direction instead of spending unnecessary money or getting to a place of like, you don't even know what supplement is making the change. And now you just have a million supplements in place and you feel like, oh, I just need to keep taking these for forever. That's not a fun place to be either. And it's an expensive place to be too.
Very expensive place to be. Are you sick and tired of your glutes not growing? Turning around in the mirror and seeing a board for a booty? I've been coaching for nearly a decade, helping thousands of women reach their goals. The most common goal? Grow my glutes. Women in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and even 60s able to grow their glutes with the guidance of my training programs. And for all this time, I've kept my best glute growth secrets only for my one-on-one clients. And that changes today. We just released our 12-week glute growth program in the PD training app. It is a 4-day program with exercise and volume adjustments every 3 weeks. You can easily access the program through our app and track every single workout. Each exercise will have a detailed video teaching you exactly how to perform each and every movement. And guess what? I am no longer gatekeeping. I'm sharing every single one of my best glute growth secrets inside this program because you are awesome and I want you to have this program. I'm going to give you $25 off, making it a fraction of what you spent at Starbucks this past month. Use code POD. The link to purchase will be in the description. Now let's get back to the show. So we finished that 12-week window and we retested. Everything was in a great spot. And then from that point, we got into the dieting phase. Now, one thing you have to be very cognizant of as you're going from a period of restoring gut function or restoring hormonal function is that you are in a sensitive position to put your body into greater stress of getting into a calorie deficit. And so as you get into the calorie deficit, you are getting into some challenges of maintaining that optimal gut function alongside maintaining optimal sex hormone production. And so by making the drops in calories, you have to be very careful of not being too aggressive. And so what we did in terms of going from maintenance and getting into the deficit was aiming for a 0.5 pound to 0.75 pounds on average of fat loss to get going, to assess how her body was going to respond to the decrease in calories after nourishing her body at maintenance calories for 12 weeks. She responded very well at the very beginning. We were able to maintain the sleep quality. She was able to maintain the quality of her training, still continuing to see progress there. Her skin health stayed in a good spot. Her menstrual cycle continued to stay consistent. From there, we got a little bit more aggressive and elevated our target to 1 pound to 1.25 pounds of average loss. We continued this dieting phase for a total of 16 weeks. She lost a total of 17 pounds over the 16-week period. Having this progression, we had some periods of time in there that she would have a weekend with her family and they would go out. They would like a weekend. I think one was they went to the beach and they were, she was eating more intuitively there relative to tracking all of her food. So there was instances that were more intuitive where she was not tracking her food all of the time. But for the 90+% of it, she was very on point within her nutrition and able to work around her schedule of having a newborn with her own work schedule and then managing her training as a whole.
I absolutely love to hear that. And I'm so happy for Sally out there. Shout
out to Sally.
Shout out to Sally for seeing all those results. Is there anything else that you feel like was very either helpful within how you went about it or anything that she shared after the experience, especially because you talked about her having a negative experience before, and that can make it even harder to trust someone of like, okay, this person's actually going to get me to where I want to go.
The one thing that she spoke the most about was my willingness to teach, not just simply here's the plan, but here is why we're doing X and Y and Z, because she had progress within her, she had been training for a while. And so for me to be against what she was doing created friction. And as a coach, you're able to tell if there's friction on specific points. And your job at that point is to diminish the friction and create clarity. And the only way to create clarity is by explaining, is by teaching, and is by meeting the person where they're at and elevating them to where they need to be. And so when it came down to the training, that was probably the place of greatest friction because she had done it one way for so long. And so getting her to back off of the training frequency. So even into the dieting phase, she stayed with 4 days of training, only training her glutes twice a week, and she saw considerable better progress. And there's a myriad of reasons why this would likely be the case. For her specifically, the big thing is she was seeing recovery. And it wasn't something where she was doing such a quantity of volume of repetitions that she was able to have better overall progressions, as well as an understanding of where her intensity was at. When she was doing sets of 15 and 20, she would be in a place where she's being more challenged from an endurance perspective relative to a actual muscular perspective. And so as we got into some lower rep ranges, she was able to have a better assessment of her intensity and being able to stay 1 or 2 reps shy of failure and seeing overall better progress and better trackable measures throughout week to week assessments. One thing that I will say for all of our clients, all of our female clients, women are extremely resilient, unbelievably resilient. And I think that ability gets even further strengthened after women have children. And so it is easy for them to go into the gym and just destroy themselves. And then even the next day when they don't sleep well, they haven't eaten well, they're sore as all get out, they're going to destroy themselves again. And then they'll just keep doing this. And it's like, I can do it. I just can continue to show up. Whereas a male is probably going to go in there. I know for myself here, I'll destroy myself. I'll skip the gym the next day. I can't move. I'm so sore. I'm not doing it. And then it's just,
let alone if you miss some sleep.
Exactly. So the resiliency is an incredible attribute to have, but you cannot rely on it all the time to just continue to push through everything that is in your way and have to lean into rest and recovery more than what they're often experiencing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think another point to come away from this is like you can be doing everything quote unquote right, but if your hormones aren't in the right spot, then the science isn't going to science. Like it's not going to end up making sense of like, hey, within being at the calorie intake she was, training the way that she was, it would logically make sense for her to be able to lose weight, but she wasn't. And so I'd be interested if that's something where she said of like after working with other people doing stuff, if anyone had ever brought up her hormones before.
They had the coach that she had worked with prior, it was something where they had pulled similar testing and the immediate protocol was HRT and getting a lot of that specific coach's products in place. And she had said it was going to be like $700 or $800 a month for what was suggested. And there was no explanation of how long this was going to be. So not only did she just start paying for coaching, but now she's going to have $800 worth of supplements that she's having to have potentially in perpetuity.
Yeah. And I think that being able to, like you said, explain, but even I really encourage clients to ask questions more than anything because people are at a different knowledge base. And I know other coaches might take it as you're questioning their intelligence or you're questioning the game plan. And we most definitely don't take it that way. We take it as you're someone trying to learn about your body and what is going on. And so we highly encourage questions. And I'm so glad that she was able to not only be taught from the get-go and be able to get that explanation, but also be able to have a conversation, ask more questions to have more clarity for herself so that she could be more on plan. Because there's literal research of if someone's collaborating on a plan, they're much more likely to follow it, much more likely to want to follow it. And so that's something that we want our clients to be involved in it. We want them to be a part of it because it's their life. Like we might be the experts when it comes to fitness and training and nutrition and all that, but you're the expert on your own life. And we want you to come with that energy of like, I know my life and we're here to make things work within that to really build that out.
That's right.
That's right. So if you want to learn more about this and the different types of clientele, because it's not just people in the two situations Alex and I had outlined today, we work with a lot of clients who have very crazy things going on, but we'll break down how we go about using our pillars to work together in a science-based approach and sustainable fat loss in our upcoming webinar. So it's free. And if you ever feel like the diet cycle is holding you hostage, you will not want to miss this because this episode just scratches the surface of what we'll really be diving into in the webinar. So if you're ready to learn why traditional diets fail, how hormones play a role, and the simple framework that's helped so many people finally achieve their fat loss goals, then make sure you save your spot today. There will be a link down below, but like I said, there are limited spots. This is free. So once it's gone, and you're going to be out of luck. But we want to help as many people as possible. So make sure that you save your spot today, because if you're listening to this on the day that it comes out, it's this Wednesday, February 5th. So if you're listening to this later, I'm sorry that you missed it, but
We'll see you there.
we'll see you there.